Welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast presented by the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Now you can bet on any NFL game this week with the DraftKings Sportsbook app, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers who bet just $1 on either team to score in a game can win $100 in free bets when a team scores you score. Just remember to use the code PHNX when you sign up. Chierstin here with Johnny Venerable. And Johnny, I was on the PHNX podcast earlier, the one that Michaela hosts. And we had an awesome conversation. We played like a little game, owner, GM, head coach, broadcaster. And we went around and picked current players on each of the professional sports teams in town. And, you know, which player would you choose to be owner? Which one would you choose to be GM, head coach, broadcaster? So I thought it would be fun to kind of continue that into the top of our show. I'll go ahead and just let you know who I picked. And then I'm curious to hear yours because it was a fun conversation. So for owner, I picked DeAndre Hopkins because he's probably the most business savvy out of anybody on that team. For GM, I picked Jordan Hicks. I just feel like he is good with relationships and he has a super high football IQ. And for coach, I picked Colt McCoy because I do think that he'd be a great head coach, but then also because Cliff Kingsbury just earlier this morning said that Colt is the only one he knows of that eats with some of the coaches sometimes and feels like he is a coach.
Nice. Love that.
On the team. So I'm going to go with that for head coach. And then broadcaster, I picked Justin Pugh. I feel like he has sort of a Joe Thomas vibe, and Joe Thomas has a lot of success post NFL career as a broadcaster. Justin is fantastic with reporters, with media. He's hilarious. He's passionate. And in the past, when the team has been awful, has not shied away from, speaking with reporters. So I think he'd be a fantastic broadcaster. So I will turn it over to you. Something tells me that we lost Johnny. All right. Well, we lost Johnny here. He just texted me. He said, be right back. So I'll continue to have a conversation with myself. I was talking earlier and I felt like Justin Pugh and DJ Humphries should actually have their own show, which is something that I would definitely sign up for and watch. I think they're both fantastic broadcasters. Owner, obviously, if Larry was still a player, he's probably everybody's first choice when it comes to owner because, well, he's already part owner of the Phoenix Suns. So that's a natural fit. But that was just a fun game that I wanted to start off this podcast with when I was not a solo podcaster. Johnny lives in Maricopa, and he said that he doesn't know what the deal is, but his internet just hasn't been working lately. And he warned me that this might happen. And here we are. All right. Well, we can go ahead and get into some of the injury updates from today. Again, Kyler Murray still day-to-day. The encouraging thing, though, he mentioned today that he has taken, quote, crazy strides rehabbing that ankle injury, that high ankle sprain. Doesn't necessarily mean that he for sure is going to play. He didn't practice again today. And he's still listed as day-to-day. So he seemed in pretty high spirits, and he said that, that's the plan, is to play on Sunday. But, you never know at this point. They also, drug it throughout the whole week. Kyler talked last week, and it was pretty much up in the air until game time who was going to be the starting quarterback. So certainly don't want to push it, especially in a week, like you've got an opponent like the Carolina Panthers, no disrespect, but I'm certain that they feel that they can beat the Panthers with Colt McCoy, especially after the performance that he put up last week. DeAndre Hopkins is still day to day. We are still waiting on Johnny as well. And Cliff mentioned something that was pretty interesting earlier today, that they decided to change up the practice schedule. And it started with, they changed typically where media is allowed to go to practice and then they have in-person media availabilities on Wednesday. And they changed everything to virtual and kind of changed the schedule around today. And I believe that's because the Cardinals just decided to change their whole schedule around. Instead of going to, having like a full practice, they just did a walkthrough because they realized that they're kind of banged up and decided, hey, we're going to try something new out. And so on Wednesdays, I think moving forward, Cliff is kind of testing out just having a lighter day on Wednesday, and kind of mentioned that they just want to get to the bye week at this point. And if you take a look at the Cardinals injury report, the amount of guys that did not practice today is really long. I mentioned Kyler, Buddha didn't practice. Aaron Brewer broke his arm. That was officially announced today. So they're going to be without their long snapper at least for a few weeks. And they're going to have to find another guy to play that position. Chase Edmonds did not practice. Max Garcia, Hop, Rondale Moore, Jordan Phillips, Justin Pugh, Jonathan Ward, all did not practice. So they're definitely banged up. They recognize that. And, they're smartly, Cliff is sort of reevaluating what they're doing in terms of their preparation and have decided to change things up. We talked to Isaiah Simmons as well today, and he had a pretty encouraging soundbite. I think at this point, everybody's encouraged by what they've seen when this team has faced adversity, and certainly what they saw on Sunday against the Niners with what they were able to do with a lot of their starters out. And Simmons feels like with the situation that they have right now with injuries, here in the next 2 weeks before the bye, they're really going to learn a lot about themselves. Here's what he had to say.
NFL ball, next guy up has to be able to come in and, get the job done at the end of the day. It's going to be nice to get to this bye week, yes, just for the fact of being able to get some of our key players back. But, I feel like this really shows us how good we really are as a team. Just being able to go out there each week and, just perform to a level we could perform. I feel like last week was gave everybody, a look at how well we all are just with all of we had a lot of starters out just everywhere on our team, offense, defense, special teams. And I feel like just times like this just really shows us how well it is. So, yeah, it'll be nice to get there, but also I feel like these weeks coming up is really going to be like the backbone of our year just because of just the way we take upon these games with guys who maybe are not starters.
Some bold words by Isaiah Simmons. Johnny Venerable is joining us once again. Johnny, can you hear me? All right, I think I'm just going to do this whole podcast by myself because he is frozen once again. All right, let me just take him out of this stream. All right. This is an interesting show, and let me take a look at the comments. Yeah, Johnny is definitely pondering. Cardinals update saying, I would feel much safer for the rest of the season if Colt started just to be extra safe with Kyler. I'm assuming you mean feel safer for the rest of the season if he just sat one more week, I'm assuming, and not Colt starting the rest of the season. But yeah, I think we agree. And yes, Cardinals update. This is a Peloton behind me. I had some interesting issues before we got on and had to move my setup real quickly. All right, we're going to try Johnny once more. If it doesn't work, then we're just gonna leave it as it is. All right, we're leaving it as it is, and we are moving forward. So I'm taking extra comments if anybody wants to chime in on the comments and walk us through this. This might be the first time, I think, we've done this Cardinals podcast with just one person. It's most definitely the first time I've ever done it by myself. So we're moving on. And Cardinals update. Yeah, if Colt started this week, I agree. I mean, listen, the fact that Kyler Murray still has not practiced, I think that speaks volumes, especially when they changed practice to kind of more of a walkthrough. I'm assuming it was because he was rehabbing during that time, but you change it to more of a walkthrough type of practice, and he's still not out there. Again, it's Wednesday. Still days left to practice, and it's not out of the question, but it's definitely, most of the times when you have people out that are on, Wednesday or midweek, it's like, it is what it is. But the fact that Kyler's been out this entire time, he missed the game on Sunday, he's out again today. There's something to be said for that. So, listen, if he gets to Sunday and he feels great and nothing's bothering him, then play Kyler Murray. But if he gets to Sunday and his ankle's still bothering him, absolutely do not. Colt McCoy proved himself on Sunday. Everybody has confidence in him. He is more than capable of carrying this team to a victory, especially when it comes to, a team that they really should beat in the Carolina Panthers. Sean, I appreciate your super chat very much. I appreciate your support very much. Kudos to you. You're doing awesome. Thank you. I am really just winging this one. Really feel exposed without my partner in crime here in Johnny with his bad internet. So again, feel free to chime in. Just trying to go through some of the storylines of the day, what was said at practice. But I think that was mostly the gist of it. Just high praise for Colt McCoy. I mentioned it, at the top of the show. Cliff giving some insight into the type of guy that Colt is. Really feels like he is, almost like another coach out there. Just a super, super high Q, down to earth, always prepared type of guy. So, would like to get, everybody back. If that doesn't happen, whatever position it may be, like to get Kyler back. But if that doesn't happen, the show must go on. And I think this team is plenty confident in the players that they, roll out there. Isaiah Simmons, again, saying that this is going to be kind of the backbone, these next couple of games of their season because of what they're going through. But, I've mentioned this earlier in the week. I feel like this team thrives in those situations. Like the more adversity that they have to face, it's not like, oh man, how are we going to do this? This really sucks, etc. I genuinely think that they don't like to see any of their teammates go down, but they like the more adversity that stacks up against them. I think they feel like, hey, just bring it on. All right, before we move on, let me tell you a little bit more about the DraftKings Sportsbook app and my pick of the week. It's a parlay on tomorrow's Thursday night football game between the Ravens and the Dolphins. So here's what I got. A Marquise Brown anytime touchdown combined with the Ravens winning the race to 10 points. The Dolphins stink. I know Marquise Brown is dealing with a little bit of a back injury earlier in the week, but he should be good to go. I put $30 on this parlay. If it hits, the payout's 81, which means I'll pocket 51. So Rooting for the Ravens to get off to a fast start and Marquise Brown to find the end zone. So that is my DraftKings Sportsbook app pick of the week. If you have not downloaded the DraftKings Sportsbook app yet, if you do so, please use the code PHNX because, again, you can bet $1 on either team to score in a game and win $100 in free bets. If they score, you score. As always, though, 21 and over, Arizona only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. New customers only. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And I always want to mention when we have Johnny, are you there?
Hey!
Oh, Johnny!
Man, I hate this town. If you're from Maricopa.
Get out of Maricopa, man.
Oh, man, I can't. I wish I could. These damn people and their shitty internet. We're back. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I don't trust it now because I thought you were back like 5 different times.
Oh, my God. What did I miss? Probably a lot of good stuff.
You missed a lot of just rumbling like a freaking idiot. That's what happened.
Give me something to talk. Let's talk about something. Man, I had my owner, player, coach all queued up, and then boom, I lost you. But I'm here now.
I was just getting to our deal of the week, and then we can circle back to if you still want to share your owner GM stuff. I mean, at this point, what's a rundown at this point, So here, I just wanted to tell all of our members what our deal of the week is. You buy one, get one, all Suns t-shirts. So I definitely like anytime there's a buy one, get one, whether it's Cardinals related or not, I always want to let our members know because it's a great deal. We've got 4 totally fire Suns related t-shirts on phnxlocker.com. You do not have to be a member to purchase one, but members buy one, get one free all this week, which I feel like is a darn good deal. And
it is.
I just wanted to make sure I said that so that everybody was aware of it. If anyone was trying to add to their collection of awesome Suns gear. All right, Johnny. I'm so glad you're back. Right. Oh my gosh.
Oh man, that's great. It's been a shitty evening for the two of us.
Seriously, a train wreck. Nope. Like y'all only know half of what went on, like leading up to us. Okay, being here. All right.
Hey, at least yours was off air. All right, here are my picks. So owner Kyler Murray, because I believe he will one day own this team figuratively.
Kyler Murray's your owner?
He is, not literally, because I think as his stature grows, he's going to, quote unquote, own this team. So I could definitely see him calling the shots alongside Michael B one day. So in that scenario, first of all, you took all the good answers. I would mirror a lot of the responses that you had. So Kyler Murray, default, is my owner. My GM, I will go with Hopkins. Remember, once upon a time, it was Hopkins who recruited J.J. Watt. Hopkins also had an interest in bringing Julio Jones on. He tweeted out that picture of he and Julio Jones and A.J. Green. I think he'd be a phenomenal recruiter for potential talent. On the coaching front, I'm going to go with Rodney Hudson, who is like a coach on the offensive line, who has elevated that group. They've had mismatches at guard. He's been the constant. If you don't believe me, go watch the tape from last week when they had like 5 different combinations at guard. And Hudson coached that offensive line to an impressive performance. He would be my coach. And then what was the last thing?
Broadcaster.
I will go Budda Baker. I watch Budda Baker's snap stories on Instagram. He's hilarious. He's one of the smoothest players on the Cardinal roster. If you've had a chance to watch any of his post-game pressers, he's fantastic. So I would go Budda Baker as my broadcaster.
I think it's just an Instagram story, not a snap story on Instagram. But yeah,
Insta story. Yes, I'm 33, man. I'm allowed to merge all this shit together.
Elon Musk. Elon here. Put me in, coach. I'm Johnny's backup. Elon, where were you?
Yes.
Like 15 minutes ago, man. I would have put you in. Would have sent you a link to join the show. That's what I should have done. I should have been like first to click the link. I'm going in the comments. Can sub in for Johnny and co-host the show with me. That's what I should have. If I was smart and quick on my feet, that's what I would have done. And
this Cardinal podcast is by fans for the fans, and so that would be very appropriate.
I got a pity super chat from Sean saying kudos to you. You're doing awesome. That's how bad it was while you
Oh,
were.
Sean, it wasn't bad. I caught glimpses and sound bites. Always can count on Sean for support. Appreciate it, man. I'm back. Let's hammer this home, man.
Well, did you want to? All right. So, Easy, no steroids, is asking why the change in practice. So, one of the topics that I was discussing while you were gone, Johnny, is they kind of changed up their whole schedule today, including like practice availabilities. And they changed the media availabilities to Zoom instead of in person. And so we were all kind of wondering what the deal was with that. But come to find out, it was just Cliff deciding he was going to change his philosophy when it comes to how hard they're going to go on Wednesdays because they're so banged up right now. And so instead of doing a full practice, they did more of a walkthrough today, and it sort of changed the whole schedule. But it just goes to show, I don't know that it's necessarily, a big like warning flag. Like at what point do we get worried with this team? Like how many guys have to go down before we get worried? But Cliff's definitely recognizing, and the whole team's definitely recognizing, like, we are really banged up. We've got 2 weeks till the bye. Let's just try to make it to the bye. And you saw that reflected, even with a simple change. I mean, it's interesting to change, you're this far into the season and you change up an entire Wednesday and what you're doing to prepare for a game. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah. It's a challenge in attrition. They'll have played, in my opinion, 4 physical games entering the bye. The Packers game, very physical. Anytime you play San Francisco, division rival on the road, very physical. This week, Carolina, third-ranked defense. That's not going to be easy, especially for an undermanned Cardinal offense. And then next week, you go on the road to Seattle, always physical divisional game. So I can understand that. And so you talk about adding a game over this course of a 16-game season, now 17. And the Cardinals, they're in a position, unfortunately, where I can say this confidently. The Packers are going to be able to coast at some point, as are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They could miss a game or two. They might be able to sit players late in the season. The Cardinals are going to be competing with the Rams until the very end of this season, and they can't afford to drop a game here or there because they're going, they're resting players or they're going all out. So they kind of have to manage that time during the week and pick and choose their battles. Now, thankfully, it's one of the deepest rosters in the NFL. Their 53-man roster, I believe, is second to none in terms of depth. I mean, they just won at San Francisco with a backup quarterback, a mismatch interior offensive line, a bunch of B and C receivers, a backup running back. I mean, it's a testament to the talent they've collected. They're not top heavy like the Rams, but in order for that to stick over the course of the season, they not only want to be healthy to compete with the Rams and inevitably win the NFC West, is they don't want to run out of gas. So many Cardinal teams under Bruce Arians, and I love Bruce, they ran out of gas at the end of the season. That 2014 team was banged up, and they lost that first-round playoff game at Carolina. The Cardinals don't want to duplicate that. They want to be humming on all cylinders. And we haven't had a chance, Chierstin, to talk about Kyler Murray yet. I think he plays this week. I don't know definitively.
Well, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I've certainly covered that already, Johnny.
Okay. Well, I will go on the record in saying that I do think he'll play this weekend for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, I was mentioning that I did think it was interesting that even though they moved it to a walkthrough today and it really wasn't a full practice, that he still wasn't out there. And that probably has something to do with because during that time he's probably, rehabbing. But he also mentioned that it was good to be out there and to see it. So then that makes me think like, okay, no, he wasn't rehabbing during that time. He was out at practice and just didn't, even though it was walkthrough. So it's interesting. It's only Wednesday. And typically I would be like, okay, it's Wednesday, no big deal. But because he's still not practicing and he already missed a game, I would want to lean towards, we're going to see him. And he said he seemed super hopeful that he was going to be able to be out there on Sunday. But I am not 100% convinced by any stretch of the imagination. I would not place any money on it. That's for sure.
No, I would not either. At this point, and that spread, 10.5, 9.5, it's a lot of points. Cardinals haven't played their best football at home. They played it on the road. And I think Carolina is going to rally around PJ Walker. I don't think they'll win, but it would not surprise me if the Cardinals won by 5 to 7 points. Huge spread. Even with Kyler playing, I mean, like, is Rondale Moore going to play? He's in concussion protocol. Is AJ Green going to be cleared from COVID protocol? What's going on with DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, we might throw back to 2019, and it's Christian Kirk and it's Kyler Murray out there, and you let the chips kind of fall where they may. This could be a big week for Zach Ertz.
Speaking of Zach Ertz, it is his birthday today, so happy birthday, Zach. And one of his favorite or his biggest fans, a young man by the name of Gio, better known as Gio, the Philly podcaster or sportscaster, I forget, one of the two. He is actually going to be on our show this time next week. Johnny, get your internet fixed. You've got one.
I will. I promise. I promise.
We're really excited to have Gio on. He sent a very sweet little Twitter video message to Zach saying happy birthday. Yeah. And we're going to have him on. He's a new Cardinals fan because when his favorite players leave Philly, he kind of becomes, fans of the teams that they go to. And we're going to talk to the newest young Cardinals fan and get to know his thoughts on the team as well as his thoughts and his relationship with Zach Ertz. So happy birthday, Zach. And hopefully we're able to talk about a really big Zach Ertz performance on Wednesday as well. So
that'd be great.
All right. Well, this weekend's game is the return of a former Cardinal by the name of Hassan Reddick. And you could argue that the reason Reddick is no longer on the team was because Golden's contract might have had a little something to do with it. So let's take a look at Marcus Golden's production compared to Hassan Reddick's production with his new team, the Carolina Panthers. Golden has had 18 tackles, 9 sacks, and 4 forced fumbles, while Reddick has had 26 tackles, 8.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. 2 great performances by 2 great players.
Yeah, I wrote an article, shameless plug, gophnx.com, revisiting the decision to let Hassan Reddick go. It's something I didn't expect. I thought they'd re-sign him or at the very least franchise tag him. But the more you go into it, Chierstin, they had Chandler Jones rehabbing a bicep. They were intent on having him come back. And then, Steve Keim made it a priority after trading a 6th-round pick for Marcus Golden midseason last year to say, okay, Marcus, you're not leaving. 2-year, $9 million deal, which is maybe the best defensive value in the NFL going right now, considering the guy's on pace for career highs in sacks and tackles for loss. So that meant Reddick was the odd man out. There was also internal belief with the Cardinals that he may or not be able to duplicate what he did last year. I'm happy for Hassan because he's put that to bed. And we can go back and forth about, did the Cardinals, do a disservice to him, screwing up his development early on, forcing him to play inside linebacker? I would argue, yes, not a good move. It also didn't help. They had 3 defensive coordinators in 3 years. And, this podcast loves Vance Joseph. Vance Joseph was the one late last year or late in 2019, his first year, that said, move this guy back outside. We need help outside. This is his natural position. And he flourished because of it. Last year, Chandler Jones goes down. Devon Kennard, not the player that they had hoped. They hadn't had Marcus Golden yet. They kick Hassan outside again, 12.5 sacks. So I would have loved to have seen him stay a Cardinal because, the difference with Marcus and Chandler, I love both those guys. They're over 30 years old. Hassan is 27. Hassan is, again, going to be a free agent this offseason, but I would venture to say, Chierstin, if he ends up with, it's not only the sacks with Hassan, he's on pace for over 20 tackles for loss, which is undoubtedly going to be a career high. So he's on pace to either get a franchise tag that's going to pay him upwards of $20 million next year, or he'll sign a lofty extension. The reason that he opted to go to Carolina was Matt Rule was his coach at Temple, and his defensive coordinator in Carolina, whose name escapes me, that was his defensive coordinator at Temple. So he said, I know you guys. I trust you with my development. I'm going to come and sign a 1-year contract. They've got a lot of problems in Carolina. Hassan Reddick is not one of them. So I hope that I have an opportunity to go to the game this weekend. Everybody roots on for number 43, because again, here's the biggest thing. Patrick Peterson, Chandler Jones, love both those guys. When they got unhappy with the front office, with the coaching staff, whatever, they demanded trades. Hassan Reddick's development was kind of screwed up by this organization. They remedied it, but early on, did he pound the table and say, release me, trade me, I want to go somewhere else, play me at my natural position? Nope, just kept his head down and kept working. I respect that, especially because, it probably cost the guy, 8 figures, certainly in his fifth-year option not being picked up, and then also probably would have if he would have been drafted. I always use this example, Chierstin, because he was the 13th overall pick, a couple spots behind him, Denver and Baltimore. You think if those two organizations had drafted Hassan Reddick, he wouldn't have remained an outside linebacker and probably signed an extension and been there and had, generational wealth for he and his family? I happen to think that that's true. So long story short, happy for Hassan. Disappointed that he wasn't able to stick around, but Marcus Golden, to me, he's everything that you want in a player, phenomenal in the locker room, somebody that they're going to build around. And I still think that Chandler Jones' future with this organization, it's an unknown right now. Had a good game Sunday, but again, once big money, what we know definitively is Marcus Golden will be around next year. It's a loaded draft class with defensive end prospects. So the Cardinals have a decision to make, but I don't think Reddick will be back because I don't think Carolina makes the mistake the Cardinals did, and that's allow him to leave.
Elon Musk with the super chat. Thank you, Elon. Johnny got that Cox internet. You need Starlink. What he needs is to move out of Maricopa.
I just got here. Somebody blame all the people from California that have moved to Arizona that are jacking up these housing rates so I can only afford Maricopa. It's sad. I want to live in Scottsdale or Tempe or Mesa or Chandler or somewhere, Phoenix. But no, drive down south on your way to Tucson, stop off in Maricopa. Come hang out with me at the IHOP. That's where I'll be using their free Wi-Fi.
Please do a show from your local IHOP. I would love that.
We've got an IHOP. We've got, let me think, a KFC. You'd love this, Chierstin. All the chains, chain restaurants that you love.
Right at my alley.
Minimal local restaurants, unfortunately. So we just need more people to move here so then they up their game. So come move here. Maybe that's the answer. Right.
I did want to make a comment though before we move on from the Reddick situation. I definitely feel like, anytime you are moving a guy out of his natural position, it's not working out for him, and voila, you move him back and he excels. And, I feel like that happens a lot. I feel like for a multitude of reasons, a player may or may not fit with a team, with a coach, with personnel. There's a long list, and that's why it's one of the reasons why it's so hard to, especially when you get to the National Football League, to excel in it. And I hate to blame anybody for that. It's so funny because I can't get OBJ out of my dang head.
You can't. You're obsessed with him. You're obsessed with Odell.com.
I know it, but just, you could just point back to like the way things the NFL isn't fair sometimes, and you hate to say it because whether you're right or wrong, whether OBJ was right or wrong, whether, Reddick was, whether moving Reddick was right or wrong or whatever, at the end of the day, it's like everybody's trying to figure out, how do we win? What's going to work best in terms of moving pieces around, drafting pieces, getting rid of pieces, the money. It's a game, right? And so I hate when, like players or people kind of just point to like, oh, well, you ruined this or you ruined that. And you can certainly point to Hassan kept his head down.
Yeah.
And I, just like you, I certainly respect him for the way that he handled everything. And when he finally got his chance, and I'm sure behind the scenes, I'm sure at some point he was advocating for it. But at the end of the day, he, wanted to be on the field and was willing to do what the coaches told him. And, whatever was said behind closed doors was said behind closed doors, but you didn't hear about it in the media. And then And then, he gets his opportunity. He makes the most of it. And, again, it's the business side of things, but I think he landed in a good spot. He seems to be having a lot of fun in Carolina, and Carolina fans have really taken to him. And I don't think anybody here in Arizona has any ill feelings towards Hassan at all. So I certainly wish him the best. I hope that he doesn't add to his sacks on Sunday. And
the thing I loved quickly on Reddick too is like he would have sacks, but then like he deflected passes. He was a great sideline to sideline player. And I love Chandler and Marcus, but I mean they're bull rushers. They get upfield, they sack quarterbacks. This guy, I can't remember. He had like 2 or 3 games where I feel like he had like 2 or 3 batted balls, and just super athletic, and like Carolina doesn't have a lot of great players, but like he is their leader defensively. And yeah, I'm happy for him.
If we would have, from Cardinals update, if we would have tagged or signed Hassan, would we still have gotten Marcus?
Well, they had the money to do both, and I think they could have made it work with all 3 of them. The problem is you're paying, people love Devon Kennard. I guess he's a great person, great human being. So we're not trashing people's character. Devon Kennard is like a top 6 player on the team. You can argue whether or not that's a good move. It isn't. But they couldn't spend that much on that one position. And they expected Chandler to come back and rebound. Well, I argue in my article, which you should go read, go PHNX.com, that if you felt like Chandler Jones was still unhappy and he would have been able to pass a physical for somebody, I would have franchised Hassan and then maybe traded Chandler Jones. And you would have gotten so much heat for that. But now in retrospect, I mean, you'd have Golden, who's a steal of a player. You'd have Reddick under 30. And it's a good problem to have, right? But no, it would have been difficult. It worked out perfectly last year, imperfectly, perfectly, with Chandler going down, and you were able to plug and play Hassan and get Marcus for a 6th. It's some teams don't even have 1 pass rusher. The Cardinals have 2, so.
I feel like that was a bit of a hot take, but
I think, yeah, I made better by it. I made better by it because he's having another huge season. I don't know if I would have done that. It's the benefit of hindsight. I don't know if I would have done that last offseason.
100%. Yeah. Because again, like we said, Hassan's production, whether or not he was going to be able to repeat that, was still up in the air. So I agree. I would have definitely, if it came down to those 2 players, or if it came down to any of those 3, like between any of those 3, I mean, I probably would have allowed, Hassan to go elsewhere. So in hindsight, might be a different story, but I still think it was a good move overall.
Yeah,
for the best for the Cardinals and for Hassan, because again, I think he landed in a good spot in terms of just being very much welcomed, and he's obviously having a great season himself with his statistics, his personal statistics. All right, so this defense, though, as a whole, if you take a look at what this defense has been able to do. They've allowed just 140 offensive points through 9 weeks, through 9 games. They've had 25 sacks, 10 fumble recoveries, 7 interceptions, 1 return for a TD, 55 quarterback hits, and 38 tackles for loss. We talked so much about the offense, about Cliff Kingsbury, about Kyler Murray, and we certainly have talked about Vance and how he could potentially be putting himself in a position to get back into a head coaching role. But I am just so dang impressed with what this defense has been able to do with the pieces that they have. Because, they started the season with JJ, but, they haven't had in the last few weeks, just the performance that they have been able to have week in and week out, save the offense, save the game for the Cardinals in certain games this season when the Cardinals offense couldn't get going. Just can't say enough about the defense and what Vance Joseph has been able to do.
So head coach, I'm waiting. Fortunately for him and unfortunately for us, I think we're on borrowed time. Reddick's a perfect example. It's like this guy doesn't need A+ players across the board to be able to get results. He can put people in positions to succeed. It took him about a season and a half to implement his defense. And that defense that he inherited in 2019 was bottom tier in the NFL. So we have such a short attention span and our patience is thin. And I remember that season, 2019, Jimmy Garoppolo, for instance, shredded them that season. I think he threw like 8 touchdowns against Vance's defense. And everybody's like, he's a joke. Denver fired him for a reason. It's just like, give Keim and Kingsbury credit. Like, guys, first of all, we had to court Vance to be able to come here. We're going to give him ample time to get this right. And like mid-season last year, I was like, this is the best unit on the team. It's the most well-coached unit on the team. They're not losing games in the second half because of their defense. And so this year, he's doubled down on just elite production. You're still without J.J. Watt. You've got, I mean, we don't even talk about the secondary anymore. For like 3 months leading into the season, it was like their corners are a huge liability. That's going to be a disaster. Like literally, they're top 5 in passing touchdowns allowed. Their run defense is subpar just because that's the schematics. It's a bend not break, don't defense. That defense, they go after the football. How many Cardinal teams historically have we watched that could not get a turnover to save their life? And this unit is attacking, going for the football, going for interceptions. I mean, they've had 2 or 3 or 4 interceptions that have been wiped out because of bogus penalties. Poor Marco Wilson can't get an interception because the officials keep throwing flags. So I think may not be this offseason, fingers crossed, could be in 2 years. He's going to be a head coach in the NFL again. And I hope I was like just talking to my dad the other day. And he's like, who's the coach in waiting defensively? I don't know if there is one. That's a little scary. Hopefully we don't have to worry about that right now. Billy Davis, the linebacker coach, once upon a time was their DC. And, with all due respect to Billy, that didn't work out. So if they need to have a contingency plan when and if you lose Vance Joseph. And you look around at the NFL coaching landscape, a lot of these guys, Brian Dabols of the world, Bieniemys, they're not having great years. These guys that were supposed to be tailor-made and ready for these head jobs. Then you look at a coach that has head coaching experience, took over as interim coach, went 2-0 this year, has a top 5, 3 to 5 defense in the NFL with a lot of cast-offs, a lot of non-household names. He'd check a lot of boxes for me if I'm an owner.
Yeah, one of the top teams in takeaways, and Isaiah Simmons was talking today how, Vance Joseph teaches CPR, which is club, punch, and rip the ball out. And,
That's great. That's great.
I know, I love it. And you would think that like every defense would preach something like that. But, he was saying is like when we start off like every practice with CPR, 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 and like that's what's always on their mind. I mean, this defense is made and is taught and practices turnovers. And so whether that's interceptions or CPR, forcing a fumble, that's a defense that I can get behind, and they've had a lot of success in turning the football over. So all around, just props to Vance Joseph, and the fact that you have 2 guys that are going to be on the field in Chandler Jones and Hassan Reddick, and or Marcus Golden rather, Hassan Reddick, but you can throw Chandler in there too. And these are all guys that are the beneficiaries of what Vance Joseph has done. It speaks volumes, not to mention, the overall success that the defense has had this year. All right, before we get to the mailbag, just want to remind you guys, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use the code PHNX, bet $1 on either team to score in an NFL game. You can win $100 in free bets when a team scores, you score. If you combine multiple bets from the same game for a bigger payout, the more legs you add, the more money you can win. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. All right, let's get to this week's mailbag. Our Birdgang Blitz mailbag, that is.
Woo-hoo.
And we're going to go with Dylan Peterson first. Do you think Kyler and D-Hop play Sunday? So I think no. I'm just going to go with no. I just don't feel confident enough at this point to say that they're both going to play.
I'll play devil's advocate. I think they're both back. I don't know how much action D-Hop gets. He's too consistently active. Last week was an outlier. Kyler's talking up his ankle, and he, by all accounts, looks like he's ready. So I will say both are active. But you could have Hopkins, unlike Kyler, you can have Hopkins active and he go out there for 30% of the plays.
Yeah, I agree. Well, for sure with Hop, for sure. Yeah. And truthfully, neither have practiced and both are listed as day-to-day. So like, we don't really know, but I'm just going to go ahead and say no. I just think it would be interesting if they sort of run it back with the players that they had last week and see how they do. So I'll just say no, but we'll see. We're definitely monitoring it throughout the week. Dylan Fica says, who's got
that's my cousin. Hey, Dylan.
Oh,
what's up, Dylan? Fica.
Dylan Fica, who's got a better chance of making a regular rotation, Wesley at wide receiver or Eno at running back?
I would say Eno, just by the numbers game. If James Conner goes down, Eno's your starting running back, assuming Jonathan Ward's still out. Antoine Wesley may be the heir apparent to Christian Kirk next year or AJ Green, but for this season, when everybody's back and healthy, which could be Sunday, it could be in Seattle, could be after the bye, he'll be active, but he will not be in the regular rotation, you would think.
Yeah, Cliff mentioned something today, which I was surprised he was this candid, but he was open like, hey, last year Eno was like hanging on by a thread, almost didn't make it. Did not have a great rookie season. Obviously, he wasn't active his entire rookie season, but clearly the coaching staff just didn't have a lot of faith in what he was showing his rookie year. But then he said, came back to camp or came back this year and was like a completely different player. And he feels like it's a great story, gave him praise for it, said the entire team is proud of him. And, that's also a great to see. And you love whether it's a guy that is a local from, grew up here or a local guy in terms of, going to ASU. They are instant fan favorites. I mean, Eno he scored his first touchdown, but everybody already loves Eno here in Arizona, unless you're a U of A fan. The way what he did to get into the end zone had everybody thinking, hey, I would not mind seeing more, Benjamin out there. That was one of the angriest runs I've seen and might be the angriest we've seen in a Cardinal uniform this season. So love me some that.
Yeah, and that quote by Cliff, that's like an Arians quote almost, hanging on by a thread. Usually we don't see that kind of talk from Cliff, but it must speak to the relationship. I'm excited to see what he can do Sunday.
Yeah, same here. All right. Mando asks, was Sunday's good run D a result of scheme and coaching or result of players stepping up?
I would say players stepping up. I think, again, the run defense is hit or miss this year. Let's not use the Packer game as a barometer. I mean, the Packers had one way to win that night, and they spent all week practicing that way, and the Cardinals were undermanned and emotionally spent. I mean, the Cardinals shut down the Browns run game a couple weeks ago. The Texans didn't do much. I think the run defense criticisms of this team outside the Packer game have more to do with this team the first 4 to 6 weeks into the season. I'm not so sure that's going to be the case anymore.
Well, I think it's something that's easy. I mean, this team doesn't really have a lot of holes. And so if you want to, sort of nitpick at things, you could certainly point to the run defense. But, I just think something's got to give for the most part, week in, week out. And sometimes it's the run defense and sometimes it's not. But I have more faith in the run defense the farther along in the season that we get, for sure. Yeah. All right, last question from Ty. Ooh. Best offseason pickup.
Man. That is the $1 million question, my man. Chierstin, you go first because I don't have an answer.
Ooh, crud muffin. Snap. Okay. I feel like I'm gonna say something and then in 60 seconds be like, oh wait. I changed my mind. I'm still gonna go with Rodney Hudson. I just feel like the center position, I mean, they struggled. Once Rodney and Max both went out, I mean, the offensive line really struggled. And it's such an important yet sometimes overlooked, I mean, any position really on the offensive line. But I feel like Rodney's presence at that position has helped in so many ways. And when he was out, Kyler didn't look as comfortable. And I feel like it affected the way that he played. I mean, everything, it's a sort of a trickle effect, right? But I just feel like he is such a big reason why this offense has taken strides. But it's so hard because, Steve Keim did a really great job, and he brought in some really great players, and he filled every need that they had from last year, truthfully. So
I'm going to still go Watt because I think his imprint is on this team, even though he's not here still. And he's still around the team. I will default, but if I had a 1A, it would be Rodney Hudson. If I had a 1B, it might be James Conner, who's got 10 touchdowns.
If I had
James
Conner too.
If I had a 1C, it might be Matt Prater. How many games did Zane Gonzalez cost this team last year? Prater's automatic. I think it's just an underlying point. If Steve Keim doesn't at least make like the nomination card for GM of the year, then the system's broken. He had the best stretch of personnel decisions that I think any executive has ever had for this franchise in one single offseason. He had 0 misses. I don't even consider Malcolm Butler as a miss because they didn't have to pay him, and they've been better off because he retired and he doesn't get his money. So they use that money.
And then the guy that kind of stepped up, Marco Wilson, he's a rookie, and so he was technically, an off-season acquisition as well, if you want to phrase it that way. So
they can't pay Zach Ertz if they're paying Malcolm Butler. The Cardinals have negative money right now, and that's because they're paying Zach Ertz. So if Malcolm Butler was accounting for like $8 to $10 million, it's unbelievable. I tweeted something out real quick, Chierstin, after our show on Monday, and it was like combined for like Kelvin Beachum, James Conner, Matt Prater, and Marcus Golden. Those guys are making like a combined like $8 to $10 million this year. Unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Golly, that's good.
Mm-hmm. Pretty good. And then somebody's going to give Odell Beckham just big money, and you're just going to laugh.
No, or he could go for the vet minimum to Green Bay.
Goodness, I can't imagine that.
Who knows? That was his team that he wanted to go to. I don't know. We'll see about it.
Let's see how bad he wants to play there, I guess.
But anyway, Steve Keim, absolutely. I knew that as soon as I said one player, I was going to be like, oh, I should have said that person, but that person, yeah. So I don't know. I just don't think you have, it's a different Cardinals team. You take Rodney Hudson out, different Cardinals team. You don't have James Conner, different Cardinals team. You don't have JJ Watt, different Cardinals team. AJ Green, different Cardinals. I mean, it's just every piece was so integral to as an addition to what they're doing right now this year that that's really hard to pinpoint. I don't know that you can truly pick one as the most important or the best offseason acquisition, but there we are. More props to Steve Keim. We like to give him props on the show. All right, well, my computer's going to die, so I don't want to be – Johnny, you left me, and I know the feeling. So I don't want my computer to die and for me to leave.
Hey, it wasn't on purpose.
I'm just saying, Johnny, don't do it again, okay? It was traumatizing.
I'm so sorry.
It was a train wreck. It was an absolute train wreck.
It's like I left one of my kids at the mall all alone to fend themselves for 5 minutes, leaving Chierstin alone on the StreamYard. That's what this was like.
That's a great analogy. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your night. Hopefully it gets much better and smoother for the both of us. And we'll see you guys on Friday.